Today is what we call supply chain service management. Yesterday we were discussing supply chain risk management, so of course we discussed that at length, but now today is something else, of course related to whatever we were discussing yesterday. Now, the first thing for us to understand is the concept supply chain. So somebody will always come in and ask to say, what is supply chain? So basically, supply chain is a network that connects company to suppliers, or the network that connects producers to suppliers. But not only from producers to suppliers, it also connects the producers to even the market, their customers, that is. So, meaning to say, since we are saying it is a chain, it starts with the suppliers. They always provide the materials to the producers, and of course the producers, they run their production processes. From there, they make sure that the final products now finally reaches the consumers. But now, from the producer to the consumer, in between here, there are also multiple players that are always involved. For example, we have transporters there, we have producers there, we have wholesalers there, we have retailers there, up to the final consumer. So all these activities, putting them together, they form this what we call a chain, because there is always an interconnection of activities from A, B, C, D up to E. So normally it is always in the best interest of a producer or a business player to make sure that at least he is having his customers getting satisfied with the products that he is selling, or else with the services that he is offering. It is always in his best interest. So for him to meet this goal of satisfying the customers, he has to make sure that the entire chain is always effective and efficient. So for this efficiency to be achieved, there is always a need for proper management. So here is the point where the management of the supply chain comes into question. The main reason why there is always a need for this supply chain to be well managed is to satisfy the customers. The question is, why do we need to satisfy the customers? Why we need to satisfy the customers? Because it is only after the customers are satisfied that they will remain loyal to us. If they are not satisfied, they will run away from us. They will, go elsewhere and find maybe some other suppliers, some other producers who are going to supply them with whatever they need. So for us to retain the customers, and of course to attract more customers, we have to make sure that our services are always appealing, or the products that we are offering out there are meeting the expectations of the customers. Hence the need for a proper management of the supply chain. Now, this management of supply chain, one will always ask to say, but see, I am a producer of this particular product, and what I do here is to just produce and of course supply my customers, and I'm managing to do that. And actually each and every morning the customers are coming in here, they are collecting whatever they want. Do I really need to have a supply chain manager? Do I really need to have a specific system that will be responsible for managing this supply chain? Why do we need this? So that question leads us to what we call the advantages of supply chain management. We may be interested to notice that we are now living in a globalized business environment, where businesses and companies are at liberty to go elsewhere and do their businesses, or to play their businesses. There are very less limits. If anything, we can say so far there are no limits in as far as the globalization is concerned. There is always stiff competition on the market. So where there is competition, there is always a need for what we say survival of the fittest. What is happening in the world is what we call survival of the fittest. So for you to survive or to withstand the heat, you need to really be strong. So this calls for expertise, extra professionalism, and of course business players always have to be very alert in as far as the competition is concerned, if they want to withstand the global competition. See, I can give you an example. In countries like Malawi itself, Some time back, we used to have shoe manufacturing companies, for example, Bata Shoe Company. Back in the day, probably in the 90s, when somebody has a shoe made by Bata back in the day, it used to be considered as something prestigious. And of course, the kids were like, wow, I think these kids are coming from well-to-do families. Why? Because it was the only company that was producing probably the best quality shoes here in Malawi. Because that was the time before some other companies from elsewhere had invaded, had taken advantage of the existing market here. But now with the coming in of globalization, every business player is at liberty to do business elsewhere. That one brings in stiff competition. That's why right now, if you look around, even the Bata Shoe Company itself here is no longer as prominent as it used to be. If you go to probably to a school, maybe one or only two students or pupils, you see them putting on Bata shoes, because there are even better shoes from elsewhere, you see. So thanks to globalization. Now, due to that globalization, there is always a need for you as a local player to make sure that you bring in some innovations so that you stand at an advantage. So the competition here comes in many forms. One, you are competing in making sure that you are providing the best quality, so that at least the customers should always remain with you, or you should attract customers from elsewhere also. You know, that's one thing. The other thing is companies are also competing in terms of offering better prices. So people are now realizing to say, okay, someone who is offering lower prices at least is able to retain the customers, or is able to get new customers. Whereas if we stick to these prices that we have, definitely customers are going to run away from us. So here are some of the advantages through which, one, we always want to hire supply chain managers to manage the supply chains. Supply chain management helps to develop better customer relations and services. That's one thing. It helps to develop better customer relations and services. Better customer relations will always help to achieve customer loyalty. If you are in good relations with your customers, the chances are high that those customers are going to remain loyal. Alright, so we are discussing the advantages of supply chain management. So one, we are saying it helps to develop better customer relations and better services. So if you develop better customer relations, the chances are high that you are going to maintain those customers, because there is always going to be customer loyalty. Another advantage that is there, why we should always have proper supply chain management in place, is it helps to create better delivery mechanisms for products and services in demand with very minimum delay. So it helps to create better delivery mechanisms for products and services in demand with minimum delay. One of the ways through which customers will always feel satisfied is through timely deliveries, or probably they are able to receive the services or the products that they expect in time. So if you have proper management mechanisms in place, you are going to ensure timely deliveries, and you are going to reduce the delays. Another advantage that is there is it improves productivity and business functions. It improves productivity and business functions. That's another advantage that is there. What else is the other advantage of having proper supply chain management mechanisms in place? Another advantage is it minimizes warehouse and transportation costs. It minimizes warehouse and transportation costs. Let us look at the costs that are always associated with warehousing. For example, if you are not able to follow the trends in demand and of course the trends in supply, you may end up overstocking the raw materials and fill your warehouses, and result those warehouses that are now keeping your excess raw materials or excess stocks, definitely they are going to incur some cost of maintaining those warehouses. So if there are proper management mechanisms in place, definitely you'll be able to maintain the stock levels in those warehouses, thereby minimizing the costs. Then here is another advantage that is there. Another advantage is that it helps you to minimize direct and indirect costing. It helps you to minimize direct and indirect costing, because at least you are able to monitor the system, you are able to monitor the supply chain, so you are able to prevent unnecessary costs that you may incur along the way if you are not monitoring. So that is another advantages. Now I mentioned something to do with the globalized business environment. We say with the globalized business environment, there's always a stiff competition, and of course the competition is making some other companies being kicked out of business automatically because the heat is just too much. Now, how does supply chain management comes into play and becomes an advantage in this situation? With proper supply chain management mechanisms in place, this one helps companies or assists companies in adapting to the challenges of globalization, economic upheaval, expanding customer expectation, and of course related differences. Since there are always a lot of happening in the globalized economies, economic upheaval or maybe economic downturns, it is very easy for a business to probably fail to perform and end up getting out of business because of those challenges out there. But now, if you are able to manage your operations properly, at least we can still withstand. I give you an example. The past 2 years, we have had this COVID-19 that has affected almost everybody, and most of the companies were affected globally, not only here in Malawi. Now, only those companies that were strong enough, only those companies that had mechanisms in place to at least cushion the shocks that were caused by that COVID-19 were able to withstand, they are still existing. But a lot of companies have finally been kicked out of business. They have failed. Why? Because of those challenges, economic challenges that affected the whole world. So it is important to have these supply chain management mechanisms in place so as to make sure that you remain intact and you are still kicking. Another important advantage of having supply chain management mechanisms in place is it assists companies in minimizing wastage, driving out costs, and achieving efficiencies throughout the supply chain process. So having these mechanisms in place, at least you'll be able to ensure that at least you are withstanding the challenges that are always there. This is the reason, or these are some of the reasons why you need to have these mechanisms in place. Now, whenever you are putting something in place, there is always a reason why you are doing that. There is always a goal why you are doing that. Now, let us look at the goals of supply chain management. The reasons why you need to have supply chain management mechanisms in place. We are taught here to say every firm strives to match supply with demand in a timely fashion with the most efficient use of resources. So here we have some important goals of supply chain management. In every business setup, there are always two variables that are always very important. Supply on one side and demand on the other side. And it is always in your best interest to make sure that at least you are balancing the two. Supply is this side, and you have to make sure that at least, first of all, you have to ascertain the amount of demand that is on this side. So you know that, okay, I have so much demand, and it is my obligation and it is of course my responsibility to meet this demand. Now, having seen that, okay, this is so much demand that I have, then you have to ascertain how much resources do I have to meet this demand. Then you have to go out and search for resources. You get the resources, you produce what you are supposed to produce, and meet your demand on this other side. So that is the task of almost every business player who is producing something. Then for that one, you must always have goals that, okay, I want to have better management mechanisms in place so that I achieve that particular goal, and of course that other goal. One of the goals, or maybe some of the goals that most of the businesses would always want to achieve is probably the expansion of their businesses and of course expand the capital base, right? Those are some of the goals somebody would always want to achieve, to say, okay, I'm starting this my business with so much capital, but after so much period, I want to expand my business so that at least my capital should be expanded to this level. Now, here are some of the goals. Apart from the expansion of your businesses or maybe the expansion of your capital base, we have still some other goals that may need to be achieved. One of the goals is supply chain partners work collaboratively at different levels to maximize resource productivity, construct standardized processes, remove duplicate efforts, and minimize inventory levels. That is one goal. They work, the supply chain partners. So when we are saying supply chain partners, here we are talking about the stakeholders that are always involved in the supply chain. It is not only one stakeholder, it is not only one partner who is involved there, not only one player rather, but there are always multiple partners that are in there. So they work collaboratively at different levels so as to maximize resource productivity and of course construct a standardized processing. The processes must always be standardized. So one of the goals for having a supply chain management mechanisms in place is to make sure that we are having a standardized process, or we're having standardized processes in the supply chain. That's one thing. Another goal that businesses may always want to achieve is the maximization of supply chain expenses. This is very essential. The maximization of supply chain expenses. You are spending on a particular process, but you expect maximum returns. That is, of course, the interest of almost every business player. So, especially in times when there are economic uncertainties, you are not so sure what will always happen tomorrow. it is always imperative, or it is always very important for businesses to make sure that at least they are maximizing the expenses. They are minimizing the expenses so as to at least make some profits. Because it is always in your best interest to maximize output with minimal inputs as much as possible. So another goal of supply chain management is to minimize the expenses, at the same time maximizing output. And this one is always necessary, especially in times of economic uncertainties, so as for you to survive in the business. In production processes, or just like in any other processes in a supply chain, everybody will always want to be cost efficient as much as possible. Everyone always want to be cost efficient, and of course while producing high quality products. So this is a responsibility of supply chain managers to make sure that at least you are producing something of higher quality, whether it is a service or whether it is a product, at the same time using as minimal resources as possible. So you have to make sure that at least you are cost efficient. So it is a goal of every business person to say, okay, let me be cost efficient as much as possible, while at the same time maintaining the value of that particular product or that particular service. So cost efficiency is another goal. Another goal that is here, that we can see here, is just to meet customer expectations. That's another goal of business players, to make sure that at least we meet the customer expectations. So we have been asking this question again and again to say, why do we need to meet customer expectations? We need to meet customer expectations. Why? Because we need also to maintain their loyalty. Because if they are not satisfied, if you are not meeting their expectations, their loyalty will diminish slowly. Eventually, you find that you are losing your market share, because probably you had 10, 20, 30% of the market. Eventually, you end up losing the market share. Why? Customers are running away from you. Why? Because you are not able to meet their expectations. So this can also be a goal of you as a business person to say, okay, I think I have to strive to meet these expectations as much as possible, regardless of the situation. And of course, not only meeting the customer's expectations, but even exceeding the customer expectations. The customers should be reaching a point of saying, wow, we expected this one, but look what this guy is giving us. Oh, so this guy can even give us more than what we expected. This is also a goal that you as a business person should always have in mind when you're putting in place supply chain management mechanisms in place. Now, okay, in order for you to meet consumer expectations, basically merchants or business persons will always take advantage of the available inventory as a shared resource and utilize the distributed order management technology to complete orders from optimal node in the supply chain as quick as possible, satisfying customers through quick deliveries, or satisfying customers through timely deliveries. So this can also be a goal of every business person to say, okay, at least for my customers to be satisfied, apart from the quality of the initial product, but at least timely deliveries should always be there. Someone can be producing and supplying, of course, one of the best quality products you may be looking for. For example, you are looking for bread, and there is somebody who is baking bread, high quality bread. But if the person is not able to deliver that bread in time, probably it can become useless, because you expected somebody to deliver bread at your doorstep by probably 6:30 in the morning, or maybe 7 a.m. for you to use that bread for your breakfast. But you find that the person is delivering at 8, 9 or 10 o'clock. Definitely, that product, despite how good it is, it may look to be probably useless. Somebody will say, I don't need bread anymore. I needed bread at 6 or at 7, but now you're giving me at 10. I don't need your bread, you see. So despite producing a high quality product, probably high quality service, but if you're not able to deliver in time, that becomes problematic. And it is always in the best interest of you as a producer or a supplier of that particular service or product to make sure that you have or you are doing timely deliveries. So this one can be another objective. And of course, we can also have another objective that is of contributing to the financial success of an enterprise. See, just in addition to all the other goals that we have seen here, another objective that is always very important is to make sure that you are becoming a leading enterprise in that particular trade or in that particular market. We may have a lot of producers of a certain product on the market. For example, here we are mentioning bread. We may have a lot of bakers around in your location, or maybe in the town, in the city where you are operating. It is always in the best interest of you to always become the leading producer in that town. So this one can also be another goal. So you have to explore measures through which you remain more competitive, and of course you stand out amongst many players who are producing or who are offering the same services, but at least you are standing out. This one can also be considered to be a goal. Now, we are mentioning management. This management, this concept that we are trying to discuss here, it is a process. And being a process normally takes some steps. So there are always steps that are followed in each and every process that you are embarking on. So this time around, we are talking about this process of supply chain management team. A supply chain process is always fundamental to good supply chain management. So it is used by companies to make their supply chains as efficient and cost-effective as possible to deliver customer value and give them competitive advantage. That's the importance of supply chain management, as we have said. But now, let us look at some of the steps that are in there. Normally, we have 5 steps in this supply chain management process. There are 5 steps. The first step here is planning. In order to control inventory and manufacturing processes, companies must always plan to match demand with supply. First of all, you have to match demand and supply. So, why do we need to do this? This prevents overspending on a warehouse space or not having raw materials needed for your manufacturing and slow down the delivery of product. What are we talking about here? Here you are the supply chain manager. You have just been hired, and this is the company that is producing probably a particular product. In this case, we are saying you are producing bread, for example. First of all, as a manager, you have to ascertain the amount of demand that you have. Of course, I mentioned that one. And by ascertaining the demand that is there, then you have to figure out to say, okay, so these are the people that I need to be satisfying on a daily basis, or maybe on a weekly basis, or on a monthly basis. All right? What do? I need materials. I need raw materials now. It is your responsibility to go around and source those materials. You have to identify the suppliers. So you must have suppliers in mind, or you must always have them handy. At the same time, you know that, okay, I have so much demand here. So this can only be done if you sit down and at least try to do your own research. You do a market research, on this end. At the same time, you search for the suppliers on the other hand, so that you are able to balance the two. You know that at any given point in time, you'll be able to meet the demand. Now, it can happen to say you didn't take your time to ascertain the demand that is here. You never paid attention to it. So you are not so sure how many customers are you going to be having every day or every week. You overlooked that one. Mwangodziwa kuna kuti ati tini ma customer kuli anthu ambiri uko amafuna kudya bread, but you don't know how many those people are. Then you go there and source the raw materials, and of course the raw materials for baking bread is what? Yeast. You use yeast at times. You use what do you call baking flour, and all those other things. You stock them. Now, because you did not ascertain the amount of demand that is there, you may end up overstocking, and now at the end of the day that will become problematic, because you are going to consume a large warehouse space on the materials that you do not need, that you are not even using at a particular point in time. So it is always very important to plan properly, to know the demand, so that at least when you are stocking the raw materials, should always in equal proportionate with the demand. You should not overstock. And of course, it can also happen to say, since you have miscalculated the demand that is here, maybe you thought every day you'll be having 10 or 20 customers, but now it has turned out that you are having maybe 50 or 60 customers. Now, because of the assumption that you had to say, okay, I think we're going to be having only 10 or 20 customers per day, you understocked the raw materials. Now, since you understock the raw materials, you end up chasing the customers, because the customers will be coming in, knocking on your door to say, hey man, we need bread. I say, no, we have run out of bread. Why? Because you understocked the raw materials. So it is always very important to plan and try to balance these two variables, demand and supply, to avoid disappointing and frustrating your customers. That is one thing. Now, we are saying you are the manager who has just been recruited recently. So you are sitting down, you are planning. What's the next step that you take? The next step in this process is now sourcing. What do you source? This step involves finding those vendors who can get the goods and services you need when you need them. So that's the second step. One, you were planning. Where am I going to be getting the materials, the raw materials? That was the planning stage, okay? How much demand do we have? That was the planning stage. But now here, we are on the second stage, and this is the stage of sourcing. So we are saying, this is the step that involves finding those vendors who can get the goods and services you need when you need them. So, in other ways, sourcing is how you get supplies when you need them and meet the demand of your customers. The issue in question here is to meet the demand of the customers. Another thing, or another step in this process, is the production process. The production process. Now, this is a stage where those materials are turned into the product, or the final product. That is production. The product that is now going to meet the expectations of our customers. This is done in the third stage. Now, what happens here? There is always production, and this production involves assembling. You assemble whatever you're supposed to do there, and of course testing also happens here, and of course packaging, and of course packing of the goods. This one is done here, and of course it is at this stage where you get feedback from the customers. For you to produce something of higher quality, normally you always need to get feedback from the customers. It helps to maintain the value and the quality of your product. That is only if you are getting the feedback. That is step number 3 in the process. Then we have step number 4. Now, step number 4 is delivery or delivery. See, the thing is, producing a particular product, no matter how good that product can be, no matter how appealing that product can be, no matter how sweet that product can be. But if you are not able to take it to the customers, or if you are not able to take that product to the consumer, to the final consumer, then that product becomes useless. Mind you, we said we only have two goals as a business person, or as a business person, you normally have two goals. One is to satisfy your customer, and again to get income, because you're going to get income from that person only if that person is satisfied. So it means the person will only be satisfied once that product has reached him or her. So if the product or the service hasn't reached the intended destination, which is the consumer, then that product is useless. So this step, the delivery step, is one crucial one in the supply chain management processing. So since we are saying the supply chain management is there to ensure that there is always efficiency in the in all the operations in the supply chain, it means at this point also, this stage, the delivery stage, it has to be managed properly to make sure that at least the goods are delivered to the intended destinations in good quality, and of course in good conditions. Here there are always three areas that we should always put into consideration. We have the right product, secondly the right time, the right place, right? So the right product at the right time, and of course at the right place. Once this is achieved, then we can claim to say at least this process was efficient and was effective, because we have delivered the right product, we have delivered at the right place, and of course at the right time. Once one of these areas is missing, then I think we can say something is wrong there. So if you are not able to get what you make to your customers, then all the previous steps are nothing. So if you are able to deliver within those three areas, then we can say the delivery of supply chain performance has been effective and efficient. So the planning, you spent your money on planning, you spent your money on production. After everything is done, you just leave it there and you are not able to take it to the customer. That one becomes all the other processes that you went through will always become useless. Now, there are some situations whereby you supplied some products or some services. Okay, in this case, let us look at the tangible products, because services are something that we cannot touch, we cannot see. But let's look at a product that is tangible. You produce something and you have delivered that something to the intended destination, to the intended customer. But for one reason or the other, the customer says, you know what, you have given me too much, more than what I ordered, because probably I ordered 100 boxes, but you have delivered 150 boxes. I don't need these other 50 boxes. What happens? They need to be returned, isn't it? So this process of bringing back these boxes back into your premises or into your probably production house is what we call returning. So returning is another process that is involved in the supply chain management. Now, this returning is also called reverse logistics. So it involves the bringing back of the returned goods. There can be a number of reasons why goods can always be returned. One, probably they are not in good shape, they are not in good condition. According to the recipient or the consumer, he may say, no, actually I placed an order, I needed these products, but look, they are not in good conditions. Some probably are broken, and some are not looking as as expected, so they are in bad conditions, please take back your goods or your products. This one calls for what we call reverse logistics. Last time when we were discussing logistics, we highlighted a number of activities that are involved in logistics. One of them was the information flow, and actually that is the first process that takes place in logistics, the flow of information. Somebody will always contact the other party to say, you know what, I need ABCD. For example, somebody is placing an order. You have to contact the producer or the supplier. I need this and that. So that one will always respond to say, okay, we are going to supply you with whatever you want. So that is the information flow. Then there is order processing. We know this, of course, we did this. And then after order processing, we have this, what we call transportation. You transport the stuff to wherever it is going. That is logistics. Now, when we are talking about reverse logistics, is of course the opposite. So all those processes, for example, information flow happens, right? There's always information flow. There's always the processing of whatever boxes need to be returned. Of course, there is transportation also involved, but towards the opposite direction. So this one falls upon the customer or probably the supplier. They agree to say, okay, who is going to foot the bills of bringing the goods back to the original, to the origin. So whatever happens there, this is what we call returning or reverse logistics, and is one of the processes involved in supply chain management. Now, for you as a producer, let's look at this scenario where you as a producer, you delivered goods in excess to your customer, or else not in excess, but as you were delivering the goods, they haven't reached the destination in good condition, right? Now the customer says, you know what, I never ordered all this, this much, please get back your boxes. Or else, look what you've delivered to me, I think these things are in bad condition, they are broken, they are damaged, and please take back your stuff. Who is going to lose? Definitely it is you, the producer, because now you are going to incur extra cost in bringing back the stuff, transporting the stuff back to your production house. So it is always important for supply chain managers to make sure that they monitor all the processes that are happening, including order processing, and of course the transportation, the modes of transportation being used, so that at least the goods should always reach the destination in good condition, of course, in a good amount, because if somebody ordered 100, it should be 100, it should not exceed. Otherwise, that one is going to cost you a lot. So, returning is another process that is involved there. But now, to minimize the costs that are involved in returning, at least the processes, they always have to be followed religiously. So, that was another process that is involved in there. Now, a supply chain normally has a strategy. A supply chain normally has a strategy. So we have this what we call supply chain strategy. When we are saying a strategy, a question comes in: what is a strategy? Normally, a strategy is a roadmap for doing something. You plan, you strategize, you say, okay, how do I achieve that one? How do I get there? How do I do this? How do I execute this? You have to put a plan in place. So normally you always write down how best you want to navigate it through to get where you want to get. When you are writing down on how best you can navigate and get there, what you are writing down is now what we call a strategic plan. So most of the businesses, they will always write a strategic plan that spans maybe for 2 years, others 3 years, 5 years, others even beyond, to say, okay, we are going to operate our business using this way, that way, and that way. And again, here are our objectives and goals. We want to achieve those goals. We want to meet those objectives. All these ones are contained in the document that we call strategic plan. So in short, we will say a supply chain strategy is a roadmap that a company uses to source information, materials, and equipment from its suppliers to create products and deliver them to the customers. It is a roadmap that a company uses to source information, materials, and equipment from its suppliers to create products and deliver them to its customers. A roadmap. That is a supply chain strategy. Okay. Now we are saying supply chain service management. Supply chain service management. Now, if we try to pick out that word service, what is a service, by the way? Services again. Okay, it's okay. See, when we are saying a service, something that you do to others, probably just by helping, or maybe for a fee or something, right? But that particular something is almost intangible. That activity is, of course, intangible, right? For example, okay, I'm here, I am talking. In other words, it's like I'm providing a service. Probably I'll get something or I'll not get something, but nobody can see what I'm talking about, what I'm doing here. It's just that you are hearing what I'm doing, or you are feeling what I'm doing. So that one, in other words, we can call it a service. Now, in supply chain management, the activities that we do in executing various activities that we are doing there, they are called services. It is a service. For example, you are a transporter. You are transporting goods from point A to point B, right? That process, that activity that is happening, it is happening in the supply chain. But again, at the same time, it is a service.